All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome. This is our evaluation session for the HM Mentorship Group. We have some heavy hitters tonight to talk to us about eval writing and basics. We have Master Chief Woods that is now going to do our first presentation, and after that, we will roll into Senior Chief Price, and then we'll roll into possibly Senior Chief Bliss or Chief Maddox after that, and Senior Chief Debin. I think I got that one wrong. My apologies.
I think it's Debelin.
Debelin. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna get it right. All right. So without further ado, I hope everyone is taking notes and be ready to answer questions. There is a chat box, so if you have questions, you can put it in the chat box. Or when the presenter is done, when we're done with the presenters, you can come off of your audio and you can ask them questions directly. So without further ado, Master Chief Woods.
All right. How's everyone doing? This is Master Chief Woods. I'm currently transferring from the USS Carl Vinson, heading over to the IDC schoolhouse. Please excuse my beard. I'm currently 10 days into restriction of movement. Otherwise, this would be clean shaven, baby skin. So this is a evaluation writing, very near and dear to my heart. I believe that the best way to pay a sailor is to be able to put words to paper, and that's how they are promoted. And if you can't do that, you have to ask yourself, what added value are you really truly adding to the sailor? So we'll go to the first slide. So,
there we go.
So is eval writing that serious? I will tell you, some of the greatest things you will ever do in your career for a sailor will never make it to that 18 lines of your evaluation. That's something that I always like to preface. However, that's not something that you want to use to say, well, I don't write well, or some of the excuses I hear, like, well, I can write better for other people, but I can't write for myself.
Hey, Matthew Woods, you went on mute on accident. You went on mute. There you go.
All right, that was weird. Okay, so going right into it. Next slide. All right, this is something that I give to all my sailors when I do their incoming CDB, to kind of give them an idea of my expectations of them and what makes them competitive in their current peer group. So if you start from the top, and this will be something that I will reference when we go into the eval writing portion. So the total sailor, as I like to say, or a well-rounded sailor, this is what I attribute a well-rounded sailor to. Primary duty. All right, whether you're a division officer, DOCPO, LPO, work center suit, your primary duty. Then you have your collateral duty, whether it be command, department, division. You got your involvement, which is three-pronged, which is association, mess, and there is a difference, and then command and community, and then your education, which is civilian and military. Now, first of all, let me give you this one piece. Before you even get out of that primary duty section, you have to be a rock star at home. Don't go into your command and trying to, take all these commands and be helium-handed and raise your hand for everything that comes down the line because you think that's the way to get promoted. It's not the way it works. So make sure you're a rock star at home before you decide to go into your collateral duties or your involvement. This is a PowerPoint that Chief McCauley could definitely pass on to you, so you can reference this picture later. Next slide. All right, so in the Senior Enlisted Academy, we have something that we call tell me what you're going to tell me, or three-part comms. Tell me what you're going to tell me, and tell me what you told me. Essentially, when you're writing an eval, that's what you're doing. You have an opening, you have a body, you have a closing. And I don't care if you're telling me, hey, your opening is this guy walks on water, his feet don't get wet, but I want you to tell me about it in the body, and then I want you to have a mic drop moment at the end telling me, hey, this is how good he or she is. So as you look at the slide, as it says, strong opening, right? You want to be able to catch the reader's attention. Understand, I read so many evals. I love reading evals, different styles, because it gives you ideas of things that you can use for other sailors. But if that opening is kind of like warm coffee, it's going to get overlooked. You got to think that whoever's on the boards, they're going to have only so much time with your eval. What's going to make you look any different or catch their eye when they're looking at evals for 12 hours, 6 days out of the week? Something that you just have to consider. So now whenever I write an eval, the very first thing when I go into the body is I say, hey, we're going to start with that leadership bullet. And some things in that leadership bullet: socialization, deployment, impact, and command. Now, why I say deployment, I've read evals that are onshore and on an operational platform, and I couldn't tell in the very first 2 lines that they were at an operational platform. If you say that, hey, you are the LPO, led 42 sailors and mentored so many junior officers during 2 deployments, that should be almost the very first line. I should know what I'm getting ready to delve into, right? And then you go to your command or department collateral. Again, it's not about the quantity, it's the quality and how you carry those out and the impact it has on other sailors. And then your association, mess, and ward room or community. Now, for those out there, know the difference between the association and the mess. The mess is just the rank itself. So if you're a first class, there may be 100, and like on our boat, there's something like 300 first classes. However, there's only 150 that are actually association or due paying members. That is a difference. If you look at the convening order, it actually goes into the difference of, hey, association, mess involvement, you want to make sure you have all that. Now, closing. Tell me what you told me. You want to make sure that this lead, the reader almost want to take his hands off the keyboard and just like, oh, goodness, okay, yeah, this is the guy. Because when they brief you, if you are the guy, when they brief you, they have to remember this. Is everything you're writing down, is it truly impactful, or is it something that just sounds good? Like I love what I don't love. I can't stand what I see. Well, orchestrated, stop. You're not orchestrating anything. Tell me what you did. Did you improve something? Did you lead something? What did you do? And you also want to make sure you don't put yourself in a position where you put your command on report. Now we'll talk about that in further slides. Next slide. All right, some openings that I've used. My number one, a 321st class pay officer, functions well above current pay grade, promote early. Now, if you are the number one, that in itself, huge. Now, functions well above current pay grade. I know it kind of goes without saying when you are the EP, essentially it's saying that you are functioning 2 levels above your current pay grade. So if you're EP first class, in theory, you are functioning as a promotable CNG. So it says a lot. So when you are outlining the fact that, hey, functions well above current pay grade, that's amazing. And that's something that's going to leave a lasting impression on the reader, which is more likely going to be the board member that is on your panel. Equal to my number one EP, number one MP of 6 due to force distribution. Not everybody can be the EP. Sometimes people are locked up in small peer groups or what have you. But when the CO or your reporting senior says that, hey, I know he or she just got here, or hey, because they are in traffic and it's locked up, for them to say or go out of their way to say that you are equal to their number one EP, it says a lot. And that says a lot because they didn't have to break you out, but they do that. So, I mean, that's always good. So if you can take that opportunity to do that, then, it's good. But again, the reporting senior, remember, this is their eval, not your eval, because this is their letter directly to the board members. Some people miss that. So this is this is one I wrote for one of my psych officers on the carrier. He ended up getting number 5. So my number one of all 40 lieutenant commanders across the carrier strike group served as my senior medical officer instead of the incumbent, saying that, hey, this guy was so lights out that I trusted him to be my senior medical officer on a carrier. That is huge because of the fact that, one, that is, you're highlighting this sailor, this officer is filling a position normally held by someone much higher rank than him. That is a senior commander, if not captain, billet, a senior medical officer. And you can do this with the enlisted. If you are filling a chief billet, it's great to put in there a LCPO acting or whatever the title is, parentheses, LCPO or E8 billet, whatever. But that shows that you're already functioning at the level that you are trying to obtain. And I know a lot of people want to put in their evals. They want to put in their evals things directly from the convening order. I am not saying it is wrong. I am saying that when someone says they're a killer, okay, all right, you're a killer. You're killing these streets. I got that. However, if you just show me, it's a lot better than saying, hey, the best and most qualified. If you write it correctly, you won't have to put that in there because you're going to see that they're functioning on the levels that they need to. Now, a question that I get a lot: hard breakout versus soft breakout. Senior, when a lot of times we go to the FMF, and I know they're trying to get away from this, but I know sometimes in the East Coast they like to stick with the one-on-one heroes. If you have no peer group, and I'm pretty sure this will be covered with someone else in this group, that especially in a joint command, there are soft breakouts. Next slide. So I wrote this for one of my sailors that was on the East Coast, and I think they ended up getting number 2. Again, the reporting senior has to feel this about you. if you think, I mean, everyone thinks they're a rock star, then sometimes the reporting seniors don't agree with you. So know that this is great to put in there, but just because you don't get it, it's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes reality is harsh. But okay, so absolute number 1, I'm 75 Joint Service E5s at my command. Some people say, well, isn't E5, it's a bad thing. But when you think you're a joint command, you got soldiers, you got airmen, and in some cases you might even have some Marines in there along with sailors. That's a pretty big statement to say that this person is that. I mean, that right there, I'm pretty sure that person didn't stay a second class for too long and end up being a sailor. Another one I've used for a one-on-one breakout for a chief, specifically for a chief on fleet surgical team. I won't say the number, but this is my number 1 45 CPOs I've served with in my 25-year career. There is just sometimes you just don't have a peer group, and there's times where you can, especially if the person that is reporting senior is senior, use that. Had the eval I wrote at the strongest senior chief I've seen in my 17 commands and 25-year career. Boom. And if they're willing to sign that, man, it's money in the bank, money in the bank. And no, there's always a peer group you can reference, always. But if you're in good communication with your reporting senior or with your chief, making sure you're doing those CDBs, knowing exactly where you stand and taking their advice, whether you like it or not, taking their advice. So when you go to write these things, you're writing them realistically. Because when a lot of sailors learn how to write, now it's kind of like that baby rattler where you're like, hey, you can't use your powers for evil. If they're not a rock star, don't do that. And they end up using all their venom on that one eval. Like, yo, that's not the guy. This is someone just got catfished because they think that this person should be a freaking chief, but they should be. I mean, talent management, is a big thing in the Navy, and the CNO has been talking about it. And the part of talent management no one wants to talk about is not everybody is meant to go on. Next slide, please. All right, so going back to eval bullet anatomy, you can use this in almost every single bullet, but this gives you an idea of how to form your bullet, because it can be tough. Question I get a lot, Master Chief, when should I start writing my eval? I will tell you, I start writing my eval the day I check in. I'm like, how's that possible? It forces me to research my own command. It forces me to reach out to the sailors and the leaders in my command and say, hey, how do y'all write evals? Because you want to adapt to their style and show them what you got, and then you're sharpening each other by looking at the correspondence that's already laid out, so you kind of already know what the temperature is in the water there at the command. Now, when you are writing that, when you are researching how to write that eval on day one, the great thing is all those bullets that you're creating are more command bullets. And as you go over that 6 to 7 months before you have to turn in that eval, you are looking at a product that you are molding all the way until the day you got to turn it in, which means that it's getting better. You're taking things out, you're putting things in, you're adding more numbers. But guess who else gets to use those bullets? Your sailors for their sailor quarter packages, for their awards, for their evals, because they have a piece in it. You just have to figure out how they can plug in to what you've already got written, something that you're molding, and it will make your life easier if you're keeping a bank of these bullets, because like, oh, you know what? I know that, Chief McCullough can use this. Oh, you know what? I know seeing Chief DeBerlin can use this eval, or hey, this H&2 can use this because he had A, B, and C to do with this result. And that's how it makes your life easier and you take care of sales. So what you need to make a bullet successful, in my opinion, first, pick a relevant pro word. I've seen some wild ones out there. You want to make sure you don't detract from the main thing. Don't put something in there that makes absolute no sense and then you don't write about it. I've seen, and when I say pro word, like when you say deck plate leader or you say mission focus or something of that effect, I've seen pro words that were almost a sentence, like stop, well, and halt. This is you're taking away from the rest of the bullet. If I'm reading something like that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, did this person trying to get this eval over with because they don't have enough to say? You don't want to do that. Don't take away from yourself. So pick a relevant pro word. I don't care if you say ready for first star. Okay, that's a little long, but I can deal with that. CPO caliber, MCPO caliber, command match, CMC caliber. Okay, copy. Now, every command is different. Some like to put the title in the very beginning. Some like you to just go ahead and run with it. Go and tell me when you leave, because in the front block, you already put your scope and you've already told them what you did. So just go ahead and start talking about it. The only time I would stay away from not putting a title in there is if you have a couple different titles. Some people will be SEL, but some will be the LCPO of a directorate or what have you, or maybe they're the PMT of the boat, but they're also acting DLCPO. You want to make sure that if you don't put the primary job title in there, it's easy to tell what role you are speaking about, if that makes sense. Because if you start writing all this stuff, like, wait a minute, is that what you did as the DLCPO? Is that what you did as the PMT chief? You just want to make sure there's no guessing within the write-up. Now, I need to know from the jump, how many did you lead? How many did you mentor? Definitely make sure you do not leave officers out of that, because there's many times where we have to take young officers who may be, future department heads, OIC, COs, and even higher. You're giving them general rudder correction on very simple things that maybe no one tells them about, and then they get to a rank where they've grown and they become this big weed that no one has ever corrected. Your little bit, I don't care if it's a second class saying, hey, sir, so you actually had the ribbon on the wrong side, or hey, sir, so normally when, on Mondays, we make sure our hair is cut and, our shoes are shined because we want to make sure that we're setting an example. Those little things, those are the kind of things we're talking about when we're mentoring officers. And guess what? You want to make sure that you put them in there. Now, operational settings, this is what I was talking about at the beginning. Sometimes sailors will write their evals, and the first bullet, I can 100% say I know that they're operational or not. Even if you're in a maintenance period for our ship sailors out there, if you're in a maintenance period, those are not easy. I can tell you that because I just came out of one, and it is rough, and the board knows that. So if you can say that you still were helping sailors be successful in a arduous, extended yard period, guess what? Your everything after that is just extra dollar signs after your job title. Now, results of your leadership, the salerization piece. Salerization, I ask sailors all the time, what is salerization? And I'm gonna get these long definitions. Simply put, salerization is the development of sailors. If you can show me that they've advanced, if you can tell me that senior sailor quarter, ESWAS pin, there's so many ways to chop this, but for the sake of time, I'm telling you, there has to be a tangible result of your presence, your leadership presence. And if you can write that, so it's not necessarily, I like to have it on the top. I've seen it in different areas. It just depends on what you got in your eval and what you got to put in there. But I need to know that these 22 sailors, they were able to thrive or grow based on your presence. And the one piece I will say about this can also be a soft kill if you're not careful. Do not put, you led 130 sailors and you tell me 2 advanced. That to me is like, ooh, so what was you doing really? I mean, okay, Starbucks, got it. So there's ways to flip that and say, hey, if you had 0 people or 1% or 1 person promote last year and now you got 2, that sounds like a 50% increase. You gotta be careful with those numbers, but there's ways to work that and wordsmith that to say, hey, this is the truth and this is what it is. So just be careful. That's something that I see a lot. Like, oh, I did 20 CDBs, but you got 400 people. So what happened to the rest? Everybody's, waiting for the water. So anyway, next slide. All right. So closing statement. This is the mic drop moment. I will tell you, I cannot wait to sit aboard so I can stop passing bro science and know that this is exactly what it is. But I will tell you, I've heard many of my mentors say that the closing and opening statements mean a lot. A point value, obviously, they can't disclose to us because they're sworn to a board, and that's how people get in trouble and results come out late. But this has to be right. I have to know that whatever you did or whatever you said, boom, I know that this person is ready for the next rank. Ready to lead and command a war C. Promote today. I was an FST chief, promoted senior chief. Clearly tracking to the front of his competitive peer group. And that's someone that, hey, they're not necessarily the number 1, but I can tell you that I know where he's going. That salary was mapped to first class. Groom for executive medicine. Promote now this future DFA or director for administration. Sets the benchmark for naval leadership. Select this future force and fleet Master Chief now. Now I will tell you, these are all real. These all went to certain sailors that I've written evals for. I will tell you, be careful, especially with that last one. There is a very fine line between being assertive and being too cocky and almost disrespectful. Flirt with that line, don't pass it. Just remember that. Just remember, you'll have certain matches like, oh, so you're ready, groom for CMC program and you're in first class. Everyone has their own idea of what right looks like. Just understand, just take it with a grain of salt, but just be aware. And promotion recommendation, promote now, promote today, totally up to you. I mean, this is the great thing about writing is you can get as sexy as you want to, you can get as creative as you want to, but just make sure you keep the main thing the main thing. That's all I ask. Next slide. And I think that was the end. I definitely have a tremendous amount of evals. And I know that anyone that is hungry or wants to ask me any questions offline, I love this stuff. I have literally woken up in the middle of the night and thought of a bullet that I'd have for a sailor, and I would jot it down and go back to sleep. No kidding. It's just because I like seeing sailors win. And that's my presentation.
Wow. Master Chief Woods. Wow, that was amazing. Let me ask you a question, Master Chief. I know, right? I see Chief Maddox doing the mic drop. Before we go to another presenter, I'll throw this out there on how you guys would like to do it. Would you like to take a question now? Or would you like for everybody to go through their presentation and then you'll stand by for questions?
I think we should go through everybody because I think we can all chime in because I'm telling you, you're going to hear some great stuff from everyone.
Sounds like a plan. I'm with it. All right, let's get Senior Chief Price next. Let me get your PowerPoint pulled up.
I'm trying to get Senior Chief Price back to C right
now. I think this one is yours, and for some reason I still can't see it. Can you see it, Senior Chief Price?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Nice. With my screen. Okay, hold on. Let me close this one. Okay, so maybe this one is it. Okay. Okay.
Perfect. Can you see it?
Got it. All right. Good to
Oh,
go.
yeah.
All right. So next, everyone, we will have none other than Senior Chief Price.
All right. Good evening. Well, good evening on this side, and good morning to all of the Japan peeps out there listening in. Eval basics in writing. This is pretty much going to give you front to back, small little cues, tips, tricks, what's important and what to pay attention to throughout your eval. And as always, like it's hard to follow Master Chief, but you may hear a little bit of the same things throughout all of us because we've all learned from a pot of greatness somewhere that touches on the same points.
Absolutely.
Next slide. All right, let me see. First off, the evaluation part of admin, right? A lot of people, when they get their evals, the first thing they do is flip over to the back, look at those letters, P, M, P, E, P, and they stop reading, no matter what it is, right? It is very important. It is detrimental to your success and the future of your evals for you to always go through those demographic blocks. Check your personal info, blocks 1 through 4, the spelling of your name. If you have a middle initial, make sure everything's correct. Make sure your rate is good to go, your designator, and your social. You'll be surprised at how if your name or your middle initial is wrong, you have to stay wrong for the rest of your career or just put in a letter of correction because the board won't know who you are, all right? Understand block 8. Block 8 is your promotion status. Regular, fraught, selected, and spot. There's a difference between all 4 of those categories. I tried to pull a picture up, not that savvy, but for the most part, if you're a rank, you've been paid and you've been that rank, it's gonna be a regular eval, all right? If you went from third to second, second to first, anything like that, you're not being paid, but you're being rated in a group, that's a froth eval. Selected is when you are an enlisted member and say you just became LDO, warrant, some type of officer. You are now selected for that group. You are not paid for them. You are still your rank until you complete all the requirements. That's selected. And then spot is, I don't know if y'all can read or see that. They say it's only applying to a specific certain group. And it's kind of in there that tells you exactly when you use spot, all right? If you need this PowerPoint, I'm pretty sure Chief McCauley can push this out. You can kind of blow that up, but that's straight from the eval instruction. So you need to look at it. You can go in there and just type in block 8 or promotion status. You'll be able to pull up that block. But it's very key to know when to use that so you're not setting your sailors up. And this is for sailors receiving the eval, and this is for the leadership that's writing the eval. So some of you second and first classes, you don't want to give someone who is froth a regular eval and vice versa. Next slide. Block 30. So this is a pet peeve of mine, and this is I guess you can say where my passion comes out for eval writing, right? So whether you are writing for your junior sailors or receiving the eval from your leadership, this block should always have a date in it, which kind of specifies the date that the counseling was performed, your midterm counseling, or should be not required. You came in to a new command after midterms were due, like just do the time on board. If it says not perform, you have just robbed a sailor an opportunity for mentorship and growth. You have to understand sailors work their butt off. In the middle of that year, you owe them the right to let them know where they stand. Are they above or below the standard and how they can get better? And if they're already tracking, how they can keep pushing the envelope and get other people on board to make them better. So if you did not perform a midterm or if your leadership didn't perform a midterm on you, they are wrong. Demand that midterm if you're the sailor, and leaderships do not fail your sailors by not performing that. So make sure that block 30 is taken care of. Next slide. Performance traits. Easy to put. Please take time to read the categories of an eval and those trait blocks before you start writing it. A lot of people, when they hear 3 and a P, they instantly think I'm a failure, I'm bad, or I'm no good in my division. You would be surprised at how good all the different categories 3.0 meeting standard sounds. Like if I read it to you and didn't tell you what it is, you'll be like, man, I'm pretty good. A 3.0 means that you are pretty damn good if you're tracking here and then you're going forward, all right? understand that with that, the traits don't paint the entire picture. So if you put on your eval, you're a 1 of 1 sailor and you're a 5-0, that means you're performing 2 big pay grades above. Yes, somebody probably signed off on that, but you've now just killed any other sailor that comes behind this person with that risk of being that high. And then you've also kind of told a story that might not be told with that block 43 to match. All right. The relation between your individual trait average, the summary group, and the risker tells a better story than just saying my trait average was this. So what that means is if you look at those different, you look at your eval, that block 33 through 39, all those different categories, if your average is a 4.0, the summary group average is a 3.5, and a risker is a 3.8, that means that you are performing above your peers and you're ranking out with every peer that your reporting senior has ever graded. So that means you're pretty good and you're in great company if you're doing it that way. If you just check on board and your risker is, decent and you came in below that, it's okay because we don't expect you to check on board and be great. What message are you sending if you're this good and you just got here and everyone else isn't? That means that entire command has lost credibility, all right? So please don't think that, hey, I'm this great, I deserve to be ranked here. It's a lot more that goes into that trait average because, like I said, it paints an entire picture, not just a small corner or not just a great stick figure, all right? Next slide. Block 43, so this is the meat and potatoes, and this is what everyone looks at, all right? First and foremost, know your commands eval format before you start writing. What I mean by that is there's different writing styles per command. Operational command, shipping greenside, they write one way. I put BSO 18 in parentheses because that's your hospitals. They write another way. Hospital style is usually an opening line, a space, the body, a space, and a closing. You have to make sure you understand that because you may write your eval the way your last command did it, thinking you have greatness. They take it and chop it because they have to fit into their format. And now what you thought was important and that message you're trying to send is gone. Yes, it hurts when you go in and you write your stuff and it comes back and they're like, hey, you took some stuff out, but it's because you weren't on point to figure out what message you were trying to send. You need to figure out when you're writing these different styles, like, hey, does my command use caps and callouts? When I first got to Portsmouth, I learned in a rough fashion, they do not use caps. They do not use callouts. It is literally a 5-paragraph order. Just write, just like an instruction. You can ask questions like, hey, do we use asterisks and callouts in the beginning? Do we do hard and soft rankings? But please understand, even though you're asking this stuff, like Master was alluded to, this is your info, but not your eval. This is your reporting senior's eval. So if he doesn't do those things, it won't make it. That's the command's discretion to push that through. For board purposes, all of my aspiring E5s who want to be chiefs, all my E6s that are up, you have to know and understand who you're writing through and who you're writing to. You are writing through your command. You are writing to the board. What I mean by that is, if you don't understand your command's eval style and you're writing at your last command's level, the things that you felt are important or that you want to tell your story may be cut out. So now when you're represented on the board, your go-to statements that might help you promote are gone, or maybe worded separately. So know that you're writing through your command. How does my command write their evals? What is their format? What is their style? What do they like to see? Some commands, they don't like to do, major opening and closings except for their top 5. Your reporting senior may say, if you're my number 1 through 5, it's a promote now ahead of peers. Everyone else is promote when eligible or something. So you have to know what you're doing because you don't want stuff taken out because you're, not on par with finding out what you need. For E5s and below, you may think, how can I figure that out? It's as simple as asking the question. When you're writing your eval, you can ask them, what is our style? How we write these? How, what's the format? And someone who is savvy will be more than willing to sit down with you so they can help you out. It says you're writing through your command, so their rules apply to formatting. However, you're writing to the board, so the message you are sending are facts from your performance. Use your space wisely. Master Chief Woods also alluded to that. Don't go in saying that you're great when you're not even the best person in your division. And I'll just keep it real. There's a lot of times where I listen to junior sailors talk, and they'll tell me how great they are, and this guy only made it because he sold, food and snacks. And the first thing I ask him is, how are you great? And you're not even PQS off your bench. And the first, oh, you know, senior, you're savage, you know, you're aggressive. Negative. Blind truth. You have to make sure that you understand and hold yourself accountable. All right. Right after that, it says, when you're writing, you know, some tips and tricks, avoid using proper nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and adverbs. Proper nouns and pronouns, we know your name, we know who you are. We don't care if you're he or she. So if you're writing, you know, Senior Chief Price led this many people, I'm taking up all that space when I already know your name because it's on your eval. Just tell me what you did, how you did it, and what was the impact. Adjectives and adverbs, if you have to describe to me how you did a job, you've already failed. So if you tell me I flawlessly led 15 people and the next guy I'm rating you against led 38, so if you were flawless, he must be magnificent. You're already at the bottom. Don't set yourself up for failure by telling me how to accept what you did. Let me do that. As soon as you put that adjective and adverb, you've lost. Anything with those LYs, and I'm pretty sure you see them throughout, you know, flawlessly, you know, efficiently. Just tell me what you did. I'll be the judge of how great you did this, and we'll go forward. Again, we know your name because it's on your eval, so you don't need to rewrite it. We don't want you describing things, but we don't want you to discredit your accomplishment. Like I said, you may have led 5 people, but the impact of you and your 5 was better than this guy and his 150. But as soon as you put, I flawlessly did something, if this person with this 150 did it better, you're already dropped to the bottom because we're now looking at the scope of your impact with those 5 people and how you told me that this was flawless, but it truly wasn't. Next slide. Formatting is key. All right, a lot of times we tell people go and write your eval and they give you that look because they truly don't know where to start. They just don't know. No one's ever taught them. Like if you ever tell someone write your eval and you ball it up, you redline it and you keep pushing it back, I promise you they won't learn any faster because you're not teaching them anything. All right. It's the same way if you have kids, nieces, and nephews. If you tell them, hey, stop doing that, but you're not telling them what's the correct way, they're going to always be wrong. So please understand, you know, formatting. 2 formats that I use and I teach is SSS and MUST. That stands for ship, shipmate, self, and mission unit, self, team. What that means is those 3 key blocks when you're writing, one is going to be about the ship, one is about the shipmate, one is about you. What you accomplish for the command, that's your ship, that's your command. Yes, you might be at shore duty or MTF. Just understand that the word ship just means your command. Where do you work? What you accomplish for them is what you put in the ship. So everything you did, led, followed, whatever, goes into that category. Shipmate is what you accomplish for your sailors. If you are a junior sailor, please don't think that you can't lead because you're HN. Go to any ward in any hospital and you have a top HN running with 60 other HNs. So you can lead and accomplish stuff for your sailors. The self is not so much, hey, look at me, I'm great. It's what you accomplish with your team, your JEA members, SCPOA, FCPOA, Sailor 360, and etc. All right. This is not just about you, even though it's your eval, is what you're doing to show the Navy that you are promoting the brand and the people that are the greatest asset, which is the sailors. The MUST is mission unit self team. So when you're looking at that format, the mission is what you accomplish for the scope of the mission. So if you're operational or if you're at a command and you're going IA or something like that, that mission is going to be separate for what you do in the command. That's the big picture outside of your normal job. Think if you're at an MTF and you were embarked on the platform, like you went with the Mercy or the Comfort. Think of the Comfort with all those earthquakes in Haiti. That was a mission that you went on. So that's big. How did you affect that mission? What was your role? What accomplishments were in your scope of duty? That's the unit. So that's your division, your department, your directorate, you know, wherever you work. What did you accomplish in that scope? Your self is what you accomplish for your sailors, and team is the same thing as above, the JEA, SCPOA, whatever mess you're in. All your bullets must capture cause, effect, and impact. You've probably heard cause and effect before. A lot of times the impact has happened and you don't capture it because you don't think about it or no one's taught you that. The cause is what you did. I led this many people to do this, or I was in charge of this, which did this. The effect is a result of your actions. The impact, the piece that's missed all the time, is the influence of what your actions reached. So if you were on a ship or green side and you led people, right, and those people went out and did something, that's cause and effect. But what does that accomplish? Like, why'd you do it? Usually the influence of your actions are your chief's evals and your officers. What you're doing is impacting their big picture. It won't hurt to just ask the why. I'm pretty sure you see Chief McCauley always putting the why. You can say, hey, I did all this. We accomplished this. What was this for? Like, what was the big picture? Help me, close that off. Next slide. An example, right? You're at a hospital, you go on a ship, or you're, doing whatever. But the example I put is for COVID. That's near and dear to us right now as HMs, right? So what I did was I had my first classes taking sailors we had in the sea school that were no longer allowed to be pushed through school because of COVID. And I'm like, they can't telework and phone muster for months. Figure out a partnership. So I went to the ER. I was like, we have 40 untouched brand new sailors from Corps school that can't do training. Can you put them to work? What I would write for them is, in response to COVID-19, reassign 40 sailors yielding 13 patient evals, 48,000 or 4,800 rapid COVID tests, 65 cases detected. Actions were instrumental in reducing MTF utilization resources by 1,600 hours or whatever, right? So the cause of that is you reassign 40 sailors. The effects of what they did was all those patient evals, the tests, and getting those cases done. The impact was they took 1,600 hours off of the nurses and the doctors' feet just by being there helping out because everyone was short corpsman. All right, that's your cause, your effect, and your impact. It touched the entire second fleet because we had guys coming from ships, overseas, you name it, and you have to make sure you capture that. It's not easy. It takes some time, right? What I also teach people is deck plate leadership and cellularization, right? When you ask for what that is, you'll usually get the exact answer in the question. So you're like, hey, what's deck plate leadership? Well, senior, that's when you leave from the deck plates. Good to go. Usually I about face and walk off. Like, I don't need you to tell me exactly what I asked you, right? So what I tell people is they can be interchanged because they're kind of the same thing, but why interchange them when you can benefit from both, all right? Deck plate leadership and cellularization can be interchanged and or used separately. Keep them separate so you can benefit from it. Deck plate leadership is when you lead sailors to accomplish something for the command or the mission. You are on the deck plates getting them to work. Cellularization is when you're leading sailors to accomplish stuff for themselves. College, STAR, reenlistments, US MAP, certifications, you name it. Know and understand Navy programs to write your bullets. Next slide. All right, so if you're your command sponsor coordinator or fill in the blank, any major collateral, right? If you don't understand why these collaterals were made, you're wasting time. So there's something called bringing on the basics. If you don't know what it is, I can't explain it now because I'm taking up time, but just Google it. Huge impact for what we do. But that program kind of changed to, from bringing on the basics. So I think it was Sailor 2020, now it's Sailor 2025, right? So if I'm the sponsored program coordinator, I would talk about how I utilize Sailor 2025 principles, or I apply bringing on the basics principles to do whatever that job is. That's going to help you write your bullet because you're pushing out to Big Navy. The programs you're using to take care of sailors, I'm executing on the deck plates to push this mission. Next one is, please use this website, www.navywriter.com. I will tell you, do not use the pre-typed bullets. Do not use the openers and closings. This stuff is probably from the 80s. However, there's a hidden gem. Go on references, click Eval and award thesaurus. When you scroll down, it is literally every common word that we use on the eval with synonyms for it. So instead of every time you talk about how you were in charge of something, you put lead, I'm probably not going to read your whole eval. I'll just skip it. Like, this guy leads everything. Lead yourself to learn how to write. But if you're figuring out that there's other words to use, you can better yourself and wow the people that's reading your evals. So instead of saying that you led this and that, you directed it. You chaired, you facilitated, managed, oversaw, streamlined, piloted, steered. You drove something. Those are the things we want to see to let us know that you're writing, and it helps cultivate the big picture that you're trying to push to the Navy, that this guy's on it or this, gal's on it. Last but not least, Matt, she was already alluded to this. Your eval is a story. You have to understand your story. Think of it as a movie, right? Every part is important. If you went to one of these Marvel superhero movies and Iron Man died in the credits when the movie's coming on, you probably walk out. If you went to see 300 and Leonidas' head was on a spear and you're like, man, what? I'm done. You don't want to set yourself up for failure by saying, engage on the deck plates, promote when eligible. If that's your opening, I don't even have to read it. I know what follows. Bottom, like no matter what it says, I got to keep pushing. The opening bullet should grab my attention and make me want to continue. The body should hook that person in. Develop their thoughts into how great you are and your impact in our Navy. The closing should reiterate how great you are. The whole caveat to this is you have to actually deserve what the write-up states. Have some integrity on your own part, some accountability, but write it to where it is representing who you are. So if you put tracking for Command Master Chief and you have been a first class for about 10 years and you still don't have your primary warfare devices, just take the L. I'll be the person that would truthfully tell you, you're setting yourself up, but you want to make sure that you are doing right by yourself. Next slide. E5s and E6s should write to the chief precepts in convenient order. Now, I'm not saying copy word for word, but you have to understand what you are being looked at and graded on. So if you don't even know where it's at, if you don't know what it says, if you don't know how to read it, how can you truly write your eval to benefit you in the long run? If I'm grading you on how great you are as a leader, but your eval is talking about how much school you went to, you've already failed. And I'm not using this as a perfect example, just letting you know, you have to know what you're being graded on so you can kind of write to that. When you read those precepts and convenient orders, it may be confusing, but I'll break it down by telling you that the precept is a document explaining the big picture. They're telling the advancement selection board, hey, here's the guidance for all the things that we're looking for people in this rate. The convenient order gives actual order to the board. It dictates, here's what we're looking for when we're separating best fully qualified sailors. So if we're giving pointers like, hey, we want a guy who's gone to college, who leads sailors, and who's involved in the command. Everyone that meets that level is qualified, right? But if we have someone that leads 5 divisions, has their master's, and is involved in every program in the command, they are fully qualified by the Navy standards, but best because they're better than everyone. You have to make sure that you understand those differences. Now, I'm not saying, hey, write best and fully qualified on your eval, because again, if you're not, you're only setting yourself up to be pushed to the bottom or laughed at. But you have to understand what they're looking for. And it's okay not to be the best and fully qualified. That means you have a lot of room to grow and blow it out the water the next year. But please hold yourself accountable by not setting yourself up in the current time, please. It's detailing all this stuff for you, and it's also telling you what they're looking for in the scope of impact, leadership, the importance of being a technical expert, having special above rating rank clause, the need for education and professional development, your rotation and your collateral duties. So if you're on a ship and you are a chief and you are, you have the same clause as Master of the Watch as your E4, trash. You should be looking at JOD or something that's above where you're at. If you're at a hospital and you're a lab tech and you tell me I was qualified on every bench, as soon as you come to me, I'm gonna tell you, get out of my office. That's the expectation. You're supposed to. So if you're striving to be mediocre, keep pushing. Again, I'll be honest with you. You can't be honest with yourself, all right? Next slide. And that's it. Key concept is know what your story is, know how you're telling it, but make sure that you're writing and telling that story in lieu of what your command is asking for to the board, which means you have to know your command's guidance and you have to read those, those documents that Big Navy is looking for to set yourself up for success. That's all I got.
All right, good stuff, man. What a way to follow up the Master Chief Woods. That was on point. That was good, very detailed. I'm gonna move to Senior Chief. Please correct me if I say it wrong. Senior Chief Deblin. I know that she has to take care of some things, so we're gonna hear from Senior Chief Deblin next.
Hey, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, right? Hey, I'm Senior Chief DeBellin. I am currently stationed at Fort Belvoir here at the NCR, East Coast, right? So anyway, wow, way to follow those two, right? I don't have slides for you guys. They pretty much covered everything. I just want to kind of talk about a little bit of some stuff about being in a joint command environment. So currently I'm stationed at Fort Belvoir, which is a joint environment with Army, airmen, and sailors, and of course we're under DHA. If you haven't read any of the convening orders, I highly encourage you to do so, because a lot of this, the convening orders also talks about jointness, DHA, and all of that stuff. So, you know, they've already talked about opening, closing, but I want to make sure that when we're talking about opening statements, right, it's going to start off and kind of um, tell you a story. You're already going to know how you're starting the story, but make sure you quantify and there's quality in what you're writing, because you can write all day on how many X, Y, and Z numbers that you've accomplished, but if you don't quantify and qualify that, such as, say for example, me being in a joint environment, I can put all day that I've promoted X, Y, and Z soldiers and sailors, but if I don't explain to the board, which a lot of people are, or which the board in itself, they're Navy people, how are they going to read that, right? So for example, I would just say in a command that's Army heavy where I'm at, a lot of the programs, there's still some sailor programs that are present, but a lot of the programs are sailors and soldiers and airmen competing against each other. Enlisted Service Member of the Year, which is an equivalent of Sailor of the Year for us, you got to write to that. You got to make the board understand, tell your story about it, meaning you're leading all three services. Vice just, hey, I am in a joint environment. You open it up and say, I am number one of 45, like what they said earlier, of E5 joint environment. But in your meat and potatoes, there's nothing that says anything about what you've done for soldiers and sailors and airmen. So being in a joint environment doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore when you do that. So I hope that kind of made my point, or you kind of understood what I was trying to say. The next thing is the ladder. Make sure that you know with your pay grade, your rank, what you should be qualified for, and you should be striving for the qualification of the next or two levels above you, right? Because if you're not, you're just basically saying, okay, I'm a chief or I'm a senior chief, I came to work, I did my job, and that's it, right? You're not striving to do more. You're not qualified up to like two ranks above you. You're not trying to do that. Then okay, you're just mediocre, as what Senior Chief Price had talked about. They've already talked about action verbs. You know, again, avoid those flowery words before each sentence. Just straight to the point, instead of trying to say skillfully, flawlessly, and all that stuff. For our E4s and E5 evals, I just really want to make it clear. I've seen so many people promote very early, right? But I've also experienced some of the leaders that I work with saying, well, it's an E4 eval, right? It doesn't matter. You have to write very well, regardless of what rank you're writing it for. One, like I said, people do promote early nowadays. Some chiefs that I know, or senior chiefs that I know, when they went to the board for, you know, when they got reviewed for the board, their E4 evals got looked at because they're like 6 or 7 year chiefs. So just make sure that regardless of the rank you're writing the eval for, you're writing it very well to tell a story of that person. We've talked about deployment support. Just make sure that whenever you go put any deployment up there, doesn't mean you deploy. You are you're what they call hot shit, right? Not necessarily. You have to have some impact or have contributed to the mission. Make sure you write to it. Um, what else did I have? And then, of course, just don't waste space on your block 43. The biggest thing I've seen is, at least for E6 and below eval, sometimes when people don't have enough to write, and I've just recently looked at this because, as you all know, E6 evals are coming up. On block 44, you can already put your volunteers there, your education, and everything else. So don't waste your block 43 trying to write all of that as well, because you can put that on 44 and really, really look at your brag sheet and everything that you've done to make sure that you've told your story in block 43. And last but not the least advice, do not wait until the last minute to ask your chiefs, your leaders, and your mentors for some feedback on how you write your evals. As soon as, the next evaluation cycle is up, or as soon as you got on board, like what Mass Chief said, start writing your eval. Start asking, hey, I just did this. I had this big impact on Sailorization, or I restarted this program or revamped this program. I know my eval is about 10 months from now, but I just want to know, what do you think, or how do you think I should put that, because I have a running eval write-up, something to just think about. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the things we do, we might forget, right? We always talk about a running brag sheet. We always talk about, I love me binder. But if you don't really do it or write to it or ask feedback for it, in the end, you're failing yourself and your sailors. So really, that's all I have. If you have any questions, I will leave my email address to Chief. Feel free to contact me, send me an email, can review your eval as well. Don't hesitate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Senior Chief. That was
All
great.
right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Hey, so for everyone that's still on board, I do have a message from Senior Chief Whisk. He joined us from Okinawa, Japan, but he had to go to a commander's conference. So since he couldn't speak, he left me a message that he wants me to read to you. Once I read that message, Chief Maddox, let him go, and then we'll open up for questions. And then I think that should be pretty awesome. All right, so this is from Senior Chief Whisk. He said, we need to help change the culture of the hospital corps when it comes to evals and sailor quarter boards. He said that we came up in a time a while ago where it was important, where volunteering was very important to stand out because, so many people were doing things, or if you didn't have your MOVSM, then you weren't ready for chief. But he said, nowhere in our eval blocks does it talk about hours of volunteer. That's what block 44 and MOVSM is for. Yes, volunteering is important for society, but not to do just so you can get an EP. He said, nowhere in the eval blocks does it talk about raising so much money for the command that you're doing hot dog and hamburger sales during working hours and not doing your primary duty. He said, nowhere in block 43 should the words sold cookies or picked up so many hours of trash be annotated. Keep the main thing, leadership, mission, and sailors. If they do get the excuse at an eval debrief that they didn't volunteer enough or didn't get involved in selling cookies, tactfully challenge your leadership to show where in the eval it states that that is required. And that's pretty much all he left. So any of y'all that know Senior Chief Whisk, he's very, very upfront and awesome. Again, one of many mentors that I've had the pleasure of working with. So shout out to Senior Chief Whisk. Thank you so much for that. Make sure you're doing your primary duties and not out just selling cookies, shipmates. All right, I'll pass over to Chief Maddox, and then once we're done with Chief Maddox, we'll open up the floor for questions.
All right. That's some tough acts to follow from the stars. You guys should be thankful and should be very, very blessed by the knowledge that you have received thus far. I'm gonna come from outside the box a little bit. So I'm gonna bring some truths to light. I'm gonna share 2 scenarios and how to deal with those scenarios from a personal point of view. And then we'll move on to the other stuff that's necessary. We're just waiting on the slides to pop up, and then we'll get this thing going.
Oh, okay. My bad. Gotcha. Hold on. I got you. All right. Yours is right here. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. Let me get on the right screen so I can make it big. All right. Good to go.
All right. Presentation. Jeremy Maddox. I am currently an sub-IDC instructor at Newby in Groton, Connecticut. And so here it is, first slide, eval language. Who are you writing to? As the previous presenters have already told you and said over and over again, you know who you're writing to. You know who you're speaking to, and it's supposed to represent you. So make your work and your job speak to the board. Make it translate. We all work at different areas, whether it be FMF, whether it be ship, whether it be shore duty, instructor duty, whatever, what have you. Limit your redundant words and phrases. We have already went over that piece. This is why I say I had to come outside the box, because I knew what they were gonna do without even having a huddle. Organized structure. Understanding your organization, understanding the structure of the eval. That is important. The opening, the building blocks, the closing, and we're gonna get to that. Next slide, please. Scenario number one. And y'all know me, y'all know I'm up front. I am very transparent. So I got a promotable 257, but I went to NJP in August of 2007 because I didn't listen. I was hard-headed, and I loved to fight people at that said time and other nonsense, stupid things I was doing as the HM3 on board the USS Abraham Lincoln. So I am transparent about it. So you're wondering how I received a promotable 257 with a NJP. Guess what? I had to go to work. I really did. I had to go to work. I had to get my ESWAS. I had to get my DC quals. I had to re-qual. If you read on there, it literally says re-qual 3M301 all the way through, right? CPR, NKO courses, my uniform was so squared away, you better believe it. I was on point. And obviously I did some volunteer work extra. They let me play basketball for the ship and we did well. Next slide, please. So how did I recover? I made a mistake. We all make a mistake, right? You had that bump in the road. Your eval suffered. I had to get back to the basics. I had to find a way to lead. I had to gain my quals. I had to understand my job. I had to put trust in my job, right? And understand what I was doing. And I sought the proper mentorship. The key word is proper, right? Not doing what you were doing previously, hanging around the same people or sticking with the same crowd. It's always often said, if you roll with the same crowd, then you're gonna be looked at as part of that crowd. And I accepted that criticism, and it was hard criticism. And they came at me real, right? And I took it on the chin and I pressed forward, right? That's how you recover, that's how you bounce back. If somebody's gonna listen to this video and wondering how can they bounce back, well, there it is. It's transparent, it's laid out in front of you. And lastly, that promotion block, it was check recommended. That saved me. Because if it wasn't check recommended, I would not be here right now. Next slide. Stuck in traffic. There's some HM2, HM1 out there that was stuck in traffic, can't crack the EP wall, continuing getting back-to-back MPs. It's not necessarily bad. What if you had different COs? What if that was, and if it was clearly marked in your eval, as Master Chief Woods had pointed out already, if it's marked in your eval, hey, would be EP, but due to force distribution, right? And all this stuff can be explained and laid out. Keys to success, remain consistent. You're gonna get depressed, you're gonna get upset. Oh my goodness, I can't get over. Find a way. Just remain consistent. If you're consistent with your job and you're constantly doing your job, you're leading sailors, and you don't have to be an LPO just to lead sailors. You could be doing other things to lead sailors. If you're training somebody, you're training sailors, you're leading, right? If you're in your mess doing what you're supposed to be doing, guess what? You're leading. If you're leading an event, right, you're leading. All this can be captured in different ways, different forms. Find a way. Next slide, please. Opening statement, key points. Some items you can't control, like if you PCS, but you still got to make it strong. You still got to make it stick out. Would be number one if X summary group, blase, as Master Chief Wood said, Senior Chief Price said, find a way. It has to be strong. It's that first initial punch. I look at it as the first quarter. Next slide. Hey, your second quarter. Now I know this is something that was not said, right? But you got to have cause and effect. What did you do and what was the effect behind it? I like 3 paragraphs. It's got to have cause and effect. Leadership, it starts here. What did you do for your sailors? How did you lead them to success? CDBs, awards, SOQs, quals, education, all of it. What are you doing to lead them to success? US map, civilian skills, Navy cool, get it all in there. Make it fit, make it strong, make it stand out. Cause and effect. Command, impact, and self. What did you do to make the command better? What is your impact to the command mission and vision? Every command has a mission and vision. What are you doing to support that? Whether it be COVID, whether it be mission first, people always, medical readiness, whatever it is, whatever your job is, right? There's a cause, right? I gave X amount of shots, which led to 100% medical dental readiness for deployment. Whatever it is, use it. Best and peer involvement. What do you bring it to the table? How did you lead and what is your impact? Sailor 360, are you in it or are you involved, right? Because I'm gonna tell you something, and I didn't realize this till I got to this level. Going into that E5 mess and learning what they were doing, going into the E6 association, learning what they're doing, all helped me out. Because eventually you're gonna wind up doing it and you're gonna wind up involved, and you need to have that experience. Because if you skip that step, it's gonna hurt you in the long run. I promise you. Next slide. The closer. Now you got everybody's attention. And as the stars have pointed out, you have to bring that home. You can't just hit them in the face in the first quarter, and then you have an awesome second and third quarter, and then all of a sudden fourth quarter you have a letdown and you blow a lead, right? That's not what we're trying to do. All right, bring it home, make it strong. It's imperative that you close strong as your final message, right? So make sure it all reflects, but after all, end all, it is your eval. Write it, take control of it, take control of your career. And if you need assistance, reach out. There's plenty of people in this group. There's plenty of people in the Navy across the world, whether it be East Coast, West Coast, or overseas, that will help you out. Find a way. And that's it.
All right, good stuff. Very passionate. I always like bringing Chief Maddox on. That passion is there. I love it. All right, listen. It is now. We've been at this for 1 hour and 17 minutes. That is a long time, but it is very important information. So, with that being said, sailors, the floor is yours. You have 2 ways to ask a question. You can either put it in the chat box, or you can come off of your audio and you can ask a question that way. We're standing by for your question. And I will say, now this is when the floor is yours to ask, and you won't ask, but then you'll go somewhere and say, well, I had a question, but I didn't ask. I wanted to ask. So the floor is yours.
Man, don't be shy.
Master Chief
you got the opportunity.
Master Chief McClinko said, your entire history is reviewed. Right to the board, right to the ladder. Leadership is what the board is looking for. Absolutely. I honestly wasn't going to say anything during this whole time because I didn't need to. I mean, with all this information given out, but that is one of the most recent additions that they did to the selection board, was going back and reviewing your entire record. If they need to, it's not just going back to E5 anymore. So your entire record can be reviewed at the board. Thank you, Master Chief McClinko.
So I'll add if possible, I'll add a question/statement. Is everybody need to make sure their M&A resume is updated, which we already covered, because
Uh-oh. What happened?
So as you said, it's not the last 5 years anymore. It's the, hey, like whatever's available. So I think probably like one of the things is they need to realize like they need to make sure their records are up to date. That's that's one of the things that we're preaching on all these conference calls and all these Zoom calls is making sure your record is up to date. That's a big thing. Like, it's so huge. Not just ETJ, but because that's part of your M&A when you're applying for stuff for your resume. Like, but when it comes to your evals, one thing I would ask is having a historical record of your reporting seniors RISCA and their their RISCA and their PG is what's something that people can ask for as far as like what they look for as far as their write-ups. Is there a preference as far as like getting your eval ready? Is there a guiding light? Like do all commands give a, hey, like this is what I'm looking for and here's how you prepare your evals, like a memorandum, like here's guidance? Do you think that's important that each command provides guidance for each rank when they're doing their evals?
So is that a question?
Yeah, sorry. No, it's a question of each command. So like, I'll give you an example. So I'm at Sir Flant, Fleet Turtle Team 8. So they provide a memorandum of guidance. Like, do you think it's important that each command should do that? Yes, it's a given that like each command's like, hey, like we need your input for your evals. But do you think it's important that each command should be like, hey, like here's our E6 guidance, here's our E5 guidance, here's our E7 guidance, like here's what we're doing for our, our block 41 or block 43, depending on the rank. Like, here's what we're looking for. Like, do you think that's important?
So I think it's definitely important to always make sure you have the guidance from each command. And I definitely agree with that. I know it was said earlier in regards to finding out, seeing previous evals. Like I know when I checked into the Carl Vinson, the very first thing I said to my predecessor was, hey, let me take a look at the evals that were written for each rank to get an idea of how they wrote, and then not just stopping there, also getting with the other fellow scene chiefs at the time to see what how evals were written, regardless of what the rating was. I think it's important to get guidance, but a lot of times the guidance, some will be really kind of like what Scene Chief Price said. It'll be very specific, saying that, hey, you will not have a breakout. You will have this bland line for number 1 through number 5, and then for MPs they will have no asterisks and stuff like that. Sometimes that is good, and I think you should get the guidance. But I think real-time evals that have already been written is going to be where your money's at to know exactly how they're writing and look at the common denominators in each of the evals across each rank. Not sure if that answered your question. Did we get close?
Yeah, my question is like, because every command is different. So I've been FMF, shower / special shower,
Nice.
and now Surfland. It's just, I think it's important that like people are right to the guidance that the command provides, because some commands don't provide guidance. It's like, hey, I need your eval, submit it. So I guess my question is like, you pretty much answered it. Is it important that each command provides guidance to their sailors stating what they want for their evals? And you pretty much, you nailed it.
Okay, good point. Good point. There's a question in the chat. I will say, for all the sailors that are out there, I would prefer you actually come off audio and ask the question. I like that interaction of talking. But I understand if you don't want anybody to hear your voice, that's fine. I'll ask the question for you, because there are some great questions in this chat that I would like everyone to hear and answer. Senior Chief Price has been answering them, but there is one I want to say it out loud, and you guys can answer. The question is, how do you write an eval when going up for chief and it's your first eval at a new command? It seems everywhere I go to, the new person gets the promotable. And then someone else followed on to that. I agree. I have been the new guy and got the new guy P as a first class, and I'm going up for chief. And with that, how do you really stand out if you got a promotable? So I'll leave that to y'all.
I think any one of us to speak to that. You want that one, Matt Chief, or you want me to hit it?
Go ahead and hit it. I think we're going to say pretty much the same thing.
So you got to think, if you're showing up to a new command and you're like, I know my worth, I'm not a P. The first question I always ask people is, what is a P? That's why I was kind of hitting on, reading those blocks, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to understand, if you come out of the gates and you're running and you get an MP or EP and you're like, don't shun me from this MP or EP because I know I can keep doing this every year. Is not just about you. You have to understand, as a leader, we take care of sailors. That's plural, not just you. So if we take care of you and say, you're great, what message have we sent to everyone that's going to drop? Because we've seen their performance that is just as great as you, but consistently for 2 and 3 years. So if you come on board, you get an MP, and there's a person that's equal to you that we drop down, we've ruined his career to not help yours. Because it won't do anything just saying that, hey, I showed up and I got an MP. Don't get attached to that letter, all right? You have to get attached to the actual block 43 that represents your story. The letter is just a reference point. It is not your home, all right? So if you're looking at it as, man, I'm a P, I'm stuck here. No, it is a reference point in the timeline of greatness. That's your career. You cannot get stuck there. Remember, that P is a reference point. That is not your home. Your home is greatness that you're going to be hitting. I made senior chief with a P and an MP. I'm at a small detachment in Portsmouth. I'm going against everybody in Texas. I got on this command and I was like, this is going to be tough because I'm out of sight, out of mind. Now you got to work hard. Your story is going to speak for itself. The things I did never came from me. My CMC had to figure out who I was by coming to Portsmouth, because he had heard so much about what I was doing at a command that wasn't mine that he didn't believe it. And that's all that matters, is when you guys are looking through a small little lens at a big picture, you're missing the movie. So I don't want you all to get caught up. And it's easy for me to say that. I get it. Because y'all probably be like, oh, you're a senior chief. You got to remember, each one of us on this panel started as E1. Like, we know what y'all going through. This is not, it's not checkers if y'all play that. It's not pity pat if you're from the South. This is spades and chess. It is a long game. You have to show progression. You have to show so much more than, hey, look at me, I'm great today. I hope that answered, because I won't take up all the time.
If I can add to that, so there's also things you can do, and just like things you said, if you write everything that you did in that time period, that's still going to stand out. I mean, if I'm starting from the very beginning and I say, hey, only 9 months on board and already a command impact leader, I mean, it's already saying something, especially when your commanding officer saying that, hey, this sailor got here and is already doing these big things. And, if you say to the bottom and, sailor, truly, heading in a certain direction, clear track into the front of the period, something of that effect, you can still, what you've done during that time period can offset whatever it's like. Because I've seen, number one, and again, no names, but I've seen a senior chief who had 2 back-to-back #1 EPs on a LHD, did not make Master Chief and retired. I could not for the life of me understand why that senior chief didn't make it. And then I look at his evals and, it didn't really say much. So there's reasons why Senior Chief Price can make Senior Chief with a promotable NP, because it's what was said. Again, Senior Chief DeBelen said it's the quality. I mean, don't explain to me how you did it. Show me exactly what you knocked down. Boom, boom, cost back, lead, coordinated, and you're done. Mic drop, and you're out. Guess what? I'm pressing 100 and we're promoting.
Absolutely, and I'll I'll come on the end of that on that question with this too. It's crazy that we have this conversation because I was a first class coming from wow. Watch how we about to tie this in together. I was a first class coming from the CVN stationed with seeing Chief Price here. He was a chief at the time. Well, we both were first classes when we first got there, and then he made chief there. I did my tour on the CVN. I left there, and then I came and checked on board HMA school. Master Chief Woods was my chief, was my LCPO there, and I checked on board, and I got I want to say it was a P. I think my first eval when I got there, it was a P. Yeah, because I'd only been on board 6 months, so I got a P. But y'all hear the stuff that they're saying, what they're talking about. It wasn't the letter that mattered. It was the write-up. And sure enough, after that first eval, that year was the year that I got selected for chief. And I never forget, I had people telling me, "Oh, you won't make chief. Not right now. You got more time to grow." But, you know, and it was a few people. I'm not gonna say any names. I love him to death. But yes, I ended up making chief, and it was with the P. But because it's not about, and seeing Chief Price hit this, and this is a whole nother topic, consistency and momentum. It's nothing you do is instant gratification that matters, right? If you want to make chief, that's a fulfillment for us. When we retire, we can rest and say that we made chief petty officer, which is a great milestone for us. But it took time. It never happened overnight. This was a buildup from command to command to command, constantly performing what we call sustained superior performance. And then when I finally got there, they saw something in me to write what they needed to write based off my performance to the board. So even though I got that promotable, it was that write-up that mattered. And that's why I was able to get selected. So I'm a living witness of what you're saying about you checking on board, getting a P. It can happen. It can happen. Trust in the process. What they are telling you today, trust the process. I promise you. All right, we got another question. The question was peer leadership. How do you get buy-in of your peers to establish peer group leadership involvement?
Who is that?
H1 Wiltshire.
All right, H1. Let me tell you a quick story. Right? Oh, H1. I hate to see your face. All right, so Chief McCauley and I, right? We were both first classes on the GW, and when we got there, there were 14 other first classes. Chief McCauley was at, I believe, 8 years in. I was at 10. We were the two most junior first classes there. Every other first class at a minimum was at 16 years. They brought us in a room and said, I need an LPO because our LPO just made chief. And me and Chief McCauley looked around and I raised my hand. And he was like, you nervous? I'm like, man, look, I came here to learn. I'm like, we either gonna fail as a team and do great, or I'll do great because I'm gonna push you all to do great. And I raised my hand, not thinking I was gonna get it. The leadership walked out the room, came back in, deliberated. They was like, Price, stand up. You're the LPO. And once we were there, I keep preaching this to everyone. I am never competing against any other person except me. My job, your job, our job is to make everyone better. That's what makes the Navy better. What the Navy does is dangle these carrots in front of people and tell them all this greatness they can do. And that's the people who usually don't do so well. It's the people who want the best for everyone that kind of surpasses all the BS. We got there and I was like, hey, I need everyone's buy-in, everyone's input because we want to do better. What is not good here? How can we fix it? And once everyone figured out, man, this dude is about us, not about him, the buy-in came easy. The first thing I said was, how can we make sure that all 14 of everybody in this room, we still eat? And we divided medical up on that ship from operations to ancillary to admin. Chief McCauley himself, he's like, man, you're pushing us out to do all this stuff. I don't understand why you're not worried about you. He was like, I don't understand you're not being selfish. And I was like, look, man, the better y'all do, the better I do. It's logic. I'm not about to go out here and try to compete with you all because I'm not helping y'all grow. I'm like, the more y'all go out and do, the better medical looks. The better medical looks, our senior chief can make sure we all stand out because she looks good. And I'm like, it's just a game of building each other up. We tear each other down so easily that it destroys everything in the making. We lose credibility from literally competing with each other, trying to tear each other down. What message are we truly sending when we're crapping on each other to get ahead? We all lose. So I'm telling you, if you go in with that mind, now, hey, it's gonna be frustrating because not everyone thinks like that. But you have to be the change that you want to see. As soon as you do that, man, everybody will fall in. I don't promise much, but I promise you that. Just keep pushing.
To kind of add to that, something that I noticed, if you are not alone, there are other first class, there are other leaders within your command that feel the same way. You got to find them, create that network, and together you can move mountains. Because when they start seeing, you start seeking out people that want to do things. You throw something out, hey, we're going to do, X, Y, Z, or hey, we're going to send COVID masks to this place, or whatever it is, whatever your cause is. The ones that show up, hold on to them, and when you start doing more and more things, you're going to have the naysayers, you're going to have people saying you're corny and you're all this, but after a while you will start to build a following, because the goal is to really get those guys in the middle, right? Those guys and gals in the middle that are kind of on the fence, like, oh well, the ones on the bottom 20% are saying that we look silly and we're about ourselves, so I'm just going to be quiet. And the ones that are really trying to get it, which is a smaller number, if they're going out there and they get together and they're moving forward, just like when it was H1 Price and H1 McCoy, I bet you there was people that were like, man, hey, even from other departments that want to be like, I like what they're doing. I want to be down with you guys. I want to see what you guys are doing. And you slowly build that network. So then when they see that you're doing things, they're going to want to get involved. And now your network is growing. And when you create a culture where it is not okay to sit down and not do anything when these junior sailors are looking for your leadership, you have now just created an impact that's going to be felt across the command. Hands down, hands down.
Wow. And that leads right into what I was going to tell you too, H1 Wiltshire. People don't buy what you do or how you do it. They buy why you do it. They buy why you do it. And that's why I always keep saying I'm on this leadership growth. It starts with why, because you got to have that inspiration. When people see something in you, they want to cling to it. Just like Master Chief said, it's infectious. Like I said, it's like a virus. You know what I'm saying? When people see that you're doing, just like this whole group, right? You see everybody in this group saying all these good things, it's because people want to do good, Wiltshire. You know what I'm saying? People don't wake up. Well, some people do, but people don't wake up and just say, oh, I just want to be a insert variable today. People want to do good. They're just lost. They don't have somebody to show them the right way. So if you are that, and if you are authentic, genuine, and real, which you'll hear that at some point if you make it. But if you are authentic and genuine, people are going to want to work with you. And I'm telling you right now, your peers are the hardest ones to fake it with. You can fake it with your juniors. You can try to fake it with your superiors, but with your peers, you can't fake it because we're around you all the time. We know what you're doing. We know that you are out here doing this in the streets, and then you're trying to do this at work to act like you're really this and that. Negative. So again, if you're genuine, if you're real, right, and people are buying into your why, you ain't got to worry about trying to win over your peer group. They're going to try to be with you because they want to do what you're doing too. We have a common goal. It's kind of like if you live in Japan, right, and you meet somebody from America or New York or Cali, what you say? Hey, you from New York? I'm from New York too. Hey, let's go, But let you have a bid in New York together, and you see somebody be like, you from New York? You from New York? Okay. You don't care because you're in the same area. But in Japan, you're surrounded by different people, but you got something in common. Get my point? So great question there, H1 Wiltshire. We're going to move to another question because there's some good questions on here. Someone said, I just feel at a disadvantage because I'm the only active duty E6 staff at a NOSC and the rest are FTS, and it's just a different world for me, especially coming from a Marine unit. I'm thankful for this group because I don't have the mentorship here because it's a completely different world. Okay, I'm not sure if that's a question, but
got a good one in here. It says, good evening from Kirby Reynolds. Good evening, everyone. Newly FARC H1, man, you mentioned primary duties. How do you write smartly if you aren't currently doing your builded job, BMAT? I've run into this at other commands. Thank you for advice. I'd like to hear from this person and what you mean by that, because that could mean several different things.
Reynolds, are you on board? If you can come off audio.
Yes, Chief. This is
Uh-oh, hold on. You got Metro PCS or something. It's going in and out.
Yes. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? I can,
Reynolds, come.
That's why he was typing.
okay, maybe that's why you're typing. Hopefully you can hear us, H1. So I will say it just, regardless of what your leadership position is, I mean, it's just writing, I mean, based on who you led, what you did, and what the impact was. Now, did they put you in a completely different position? And that's kind of hard to see with a BMET, because y'all are not easy to come by. Type something for us as far as what you mean as far as if you aren't currently doing your billeted job.
Okay, and while we're working on that with Reynolds, there's another good one in here for y'all too. It says, good morning from Yokosuka, Japan. HN Comb here. Since my senior enlisted are writing my eval, how does it go when you intend to submit a statement in block 51? Oftentimes, I feel like my eval is lacking substance or that they have omitted crucial points that should be in block 43. Thank you.
H&. Comb.
Mhm.
All right, so it's a humbling moment, right? H&. Comb. So you got to think, first and foremost, whoever is helping you over there, like, you know, your senior enlisted or whatever, when you write that you want, or you check that box, I want to write a statement, they should be the first person on board to help you write. I almost get excited because it kind of helps me jog my memory on how to do it. The first thing about writing a statement is it can only be facts. It cannot be feelings. It cannot be what you think. It cannot be their whole personal vendettas. It is strictly facts. So if you have facts, those facts are usually in the form of, here is what I did, kind of like what Matt Chief Woods has been saying. What have you done? That's it. Anything else outside of that is not to be written in a statement, because a statement is saying, my eval was presented with this, it was missing this. What you have to understand though is, as senior enlisted, yes, sometimes we do a bad job at debriefing your evals, because in our head, we know what it is that needs to be on here. But what we should get better is explaining to you what it is that we're looking for, how we're looking at it, and what we're writing. Again, that's what that midterm is for.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that there's certain things that you feel were not on there. You have to have that truthful talk and that realization hit. What is it that wasn't made on there? Because I promise you, if it was your job, it'll be on there. If it's something you felt that you did that was extra, maybe it's in there, but just written differently. Because I've had to explain that to junior sailors. They may say, you know, I want a blurb explaining how I got all my quals done in, you know, 3 months. That could be an opening sentence by saying, newly checked on board.
I follow them on Instagram. They're always.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know what that was, but you know, you could probably just hit that line with like, hey, you know, completed quals ahead of schedule. That sends signals. We already know what that means. It's just probably not explained. So I wish, you know, we can talk to you also to figure out, like, you know, more of what it is, but, you know, don't be afraid to submit a statement. However, understand that that statement is all factual. If there is something that is factual that was not put in your eval, good to go. I've had it to where I helped a sailor out here in Portsmouth, where when I first checked on board, she got all her quals, she did all her volunteers, she did everything. But being that she was not liked by the command because she had her master's degree and they felt she should be doing something else, they were omitting certain things from her eval as far as leadership. They put her as a section supervisor, but didn't write to that. So when I got on board, I helped her write a statement that, hey, you know, here is my qual as a section supervisor, but now I'm not working in that capacity because they're forcing me to go on a night shift with no explanation. And the only thing we had to do is write strictly, here's the facts. She got a qual, she was qualified, no mistakes. There was no, you know, incidents. And she was, you know, forced to not work in that capacity for no reason other than they just didn't like her. You know, you have to understand that it is strictly factual. I can't speak on what that statement is, but like I said, you know, humbling moment, just understand that accountability piece I talked about earlier. If you're not truthful with yourself, where you're like, hey, you know, I'm good, I do this, I do that, and it's based off what you think, like, I think I'm better without looking at the big picture, you could come away from this, you know, with a different aspect of who you are and what it is that you actually do compared to your peers.
Master Wood, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so sorry, I was reading this the one from
Oh,
Asian.
Randall.
The if we could kind of refresh my memory, I'm sorry, I was reading this and I completely lost train of thought. What was the question again?
Well, so the one that CN Chief Price was speaking on was the sailor basically was talking about writing a statement because there was information being omitted from the eval from Block 41.
So I've run into this a lot. I've had sailors tell me like, yeah, we took this out, we took that out, and this is where leadership has to be very very honest. Hey, been doing this for a little while. I'm gonna tell you, this is important, this is not, and let me tell you why. For me to, because some sailors will be like, well, I had all these things, I had all these collaterals, and I'm like, okay, but did you look at the fact that your last eval, that's all you talked about was ACFL, and we need to minimize it on this eval so we can talk about the other great things you're doing. And sometimes in itself, when you see 14 collateral duties, and some of them made up in 29, block 29, are like, hey man, you're hurting yourself. So sometimes you have to trust your leadership, but ask the questions though. And kind of like what Senior Chief Woods said, tactfully challenge yourself, like, Chief, Senior Chief, can you explain to me, I thought this was important, help me find the way of why you took this out and you concentrated on X, Y, and Z. Because you may be surprised what the answer is. And and especially if there's not a good relationship in there should have been expectations put out in the very beginning, so you already knew how this eval was, right? Someone had asked earlier, one of the chiefs asked, hey, command guidance. There's also departmental guidance, because usually the closer you get to the deck plate, that there's a lot more explanation to, this is important, this is what I want you to write, this is what I want you to concentrate on. And if you're not getting that information, you have to ask yourself, why aren't you? And a lot of times because it's not important to you, or maybe you just don't see the importance. You got to go out there and ask your leadership exactly, what is it that I need to do?
Absolutely. And then I know you were finishing up with Mr. Reynolds, the first class, H1. He's currently at PCU, block 29, always seems to be an issue matching with 43 and gets overmatched by other collaterals.
Man, this is a tough one. So when you are commissioning a ship, I mean, you are that's a big deal. It's a big deal. You're bringing it from the ground up. You're creating freaking, you're building 3M from the bottom, scared from the bottom. Wow, hats off to you, first of all. That's not easy to do. But there's still things that you can write to. I would say something that you could do is you definitely get a couple of email addresses from the group that's here, and see what you're looking at, because it sounds like you're writing an eval, you're not exactly sure what to put in there. Hey, grab some emails from this group and send us what you got, and we can look at it and give you some advice. Because if some of us may have not been at PCUs, but we definitely have seen evals or have buddies that have been on PCUs that can show you some of the things that are right, because that's a big deal. You can capitalize on being on the ship when you're commissioning. Being a plank owner is not a small thing.
Absolutely.
What I was going to add to that for H1 Reynolds, you have to think. So a lot of times as techs, we have this bad where we're trying to explain what we do as techs. I'll be honest with you, no one cares. And the reason why I say that is when you're on a PCU or any ship, you're a sailor first. If I can tell what type of tech you are by reading your block 43, you have failed yourself. You have to do everything in your job, which is what BMETs do. However, limit that to like a line. Let them know you're the technical expert and move on. Being on the PCU is a huge opportunity because that is high vis for the Navy and it's a lot of work. So if you're focusing on being at BMET, when you're not talking about bringing up the MERS or the SAMs, whatever y'all use, or bringing up different programs on the ship, or how you're driving readiness for the ship, or how you're contributing to everyone else on that PCU's readiness, like the big picture medical stuff. Because you gotta remember, we are not the go-to guys on the ship. We're support, we're the help. We're like the janitors over in the hospitals. We are there to support the big picture. So that's what you should be capturing. And your BMET piece should be very small, if nothing else. we expect you to be able to do all your BMET stuff as a DMET. You're the subject matter expert, but you want to make sure you're hitting on all wickets to capture that PCU. Because I'm like Master Chief alluded to, that's a big thing. And if I would feel terrible if your eval only talked about BMET stuff and you're on the PCU because it's an opportunity missed.
All right. It's so look here. We got about, I'm gonna give about 5 to 8 more minutes, and then we're gonna shut this down because people got, people gotta go to bed around here, okay? But I do have another question in the chat box, and for any other sailors out there, you better put your question in the chat box, or you better get ready to ask it, okay? H1 Stanway has a question. What is the main importance with block 41? Could it hurt or help when evals are getting looked at? I don't know if I'm asking this question the right way, but I just want to know from the chief's perspective on that block.
We can use it to send a message if that's what you're asking. If you're an H1 and I put assignment and rate, message sent. The importance is it is to tell whoever's reading your eval the current level you're on, what you can aspire to be, or where we see you. You may put MCPO and you're not even in first class. So, I mean, you can send a message that way, but it's not something that's going to be used against you or to hurt you. Like if you're a first class and you put, MSCIPP and officer programs, is that going to kill your chances of a good eval? No. But if we put assignment and rate, and remember, this eval is an entire story. So whatever we put in 41 should mimic what is happening in block 43. So if I put, assignment and rate, and when it comes down at 43 and it only talks about you led yourself and, you have the potential to be better, it tells a story.
All right. I think that answers that. Great point. All right. I don't see any more questions in the chat box. Any other sailors out there have any questions? Or I do see some other senior leaders in here. If you have any comments that you would like to add before we get ready to close this down, you are more than welcome to come off audio. Okay, somebody.
Well, hello, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
Hey,
ahead.
so this is Chief Morris. I work down here at NMFSC down in San Antonio. I see a lot of familiar faces. I am very familiar with Chief Woods. I mean, Master Chief Woods, excuse me. Let me get that right. So I just want to say hello to you all and thank you for this. Just know that at the end of the day, when leading or when following or any of those things, motive is a big key, right? You have to have the right heart. You have to have the right mind because like Chief McCullough said, the sailors will see it, your peers will see it, and you want to be able to sleep at night knowing that you did what you could, So I thank you all for this platform. Oh my goodness gracious. I know I came on a little late, but I am very, very happy with the way that the Navy, well, not the Navy, but the way that we are going because we're building the future, right? So these guys that are on here right now will take our place. They will take our place. They're going to be the ones leading, and majority of them are leading now. So again, thank you all for your time. And oh, Lord have mercy, Pedrosa Williams. I love you. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, sis.
Awesome. All right, we got one last. So the sailor said, I got assignment and rate and potential in the same evaluation. How do I explain that to the board in no closing?
I answered it in the box.
Okay, good. You answered that. All right. So listen, we are going to get ready to close this down. I think that this was awesome. First, let me say, well, you know what? I'll save mine for last because this was not my show. This was y'all's show. I'm going to give the opportunity to Senior Chief Price and Master Chief Woods to give some closing remarks, and then we'll get ready to shut it down. Senior Chief Price.
Thanks for the opportunity. For all y'all that came on board, I hope we didn't just waste your time. I hope y'all learned something. As always, it's hard to find us. If you're at an MTF and you're in global, I'm Alexis Price, probably the only one in there. So if you ever have a question, hit me up. Other than that, good luck, keep pushing, proud of y'all. And like I said, compete with you, help everybody else. Are you gonna put like the PowerPoints and stuff in the group for them to grab?
Yes, I'm gonna post this as a recorded video with the link so it can be shared, as well as I'm gonna take these PowerPoints and put them in the file section of the Corman Mentorship group.
And then if possible, can you put, you know how they have the Word document that mimics a Block 43? I think that's a great tool for a lot of these guys to use, and they may not know about it.
Oh,
Just so they can have that.
got it. Yes, I do. I got you. Track it, Senior Chief. All right,
Wow.
before we get to closing remarks from Master Chief Woods, I do want to give another congratulations to Senior Chief Bush.
Shoulders.
Congrats to Senior Chief Bush in the house.
Nice.
All right, and then we'll end with Master Chief Woods. Any closing remarks?
Hey, I will tell you, going back to what I said in the beginning, the greatest things you will ever do as a leader will never make it to that 18 lines. Staying up with that sailor on the phone that doesn't feel like it's worth living his life anymore, or helping that sailor find a way to figure out their financial problems. Some of those things you're impacting future officers, future chiefs, senior chiefs, master chiefs that look to the mess and say, you know what, I have the light if I ever lose my way. But know that your efforts will always dictate your results, and there's always someone that wants to push just as hard as you. Find them, link up with them, sharpen each other. Just like Senior Chief Price said, it's not about competing with that person that's next to you. If you are going as hard as you can and you make yourself better each day, each eval, not just as a sailor, but as a person, you will do great things and people will follow your lead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Master Chief Woods. Senior Chief Price, I want to say thank you to everyone that logged in tonight. I think the high we got out today was 40. We got a total of 40 participants tonight. So.
Hey, I just want to say congratulations to Master Chief Woods out there. That's what's up.
What's up,
That's
brother?
my man. That's my man right there. Alexis, I see you up there. What's up, Tristan?
What's going on, brother?
Shipmates. How y'all doing out there?
Good.
I just,
I don't think you know that this was recorded.
Chief, it's fine. It's fine. Chief Morris down here, she invited me on, and I thought I would just come on and say congratulations to Master Chief Woods down there. He's a great mentor for everybody on this call.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you, man.
Absolutely. Definitely good to see you, brother. All right, we're going to get ready to close out. Again, thank you all for logging in. Hopefully we can keep this trend going. Tomorrow we do have platform mentorship where we're going to talk about all different platforms that our rate has to offer. We want to hear from the junior sailors. What are your experiences and positive feedback? And then our senior sailors, we're going to share some of our expectations in regards to the many different platforms. But again, for tonight, this has been awesome. Thank you all so much. You all stay blessed. And remember what your why is. We're out.
Yeah.